Welcome, everyone. We're going to start in about a minute. I think we are ready to start. Welcome, everyone. My name is Deema Dajani from Scaled Agile. I'm a product management director, and I am thrilled to be experiencing this panel with two of our experts here, the one and only Fabiola Eylozer, who is the founder of Just Leading Solutions and the newest offering we have, Agile HR Explorer course that is now available on SAFe Studio. And straight from the field, another wonderful SAFe Fellow, Charlene Cuenca, who has extensive experience in the world of Agile HR within her transformation. So welcome both. We're excited to have you. The reason we are here today is to start to bring to the community the wealth of knowledge and experience that's emerging, which is bringing HR and people teams into the fold, into your transformations. We're going to learn today why it's so critical, how the world of HR is changing, and how do we merge the world of lean, agile, and SAFe transformations with Agile HR. So as we start, I would love to do a quick poll with this audience to see exactly where you guys are. Sorry if you don't mind initiating the poll. So how involved is your HR organization into your Agile transformation? You either have no connection, not yet anyway, or you have HR team has a little bit of awareness about your transformation. HR is contributing somewhat. HR is helping solve some key policy items. And at the other end of the spectrum, HR is actually right there, full-time representation as part of your LACE or your Agile transformation team. How involved is your HR organization in the Agile transformation? And Sawyer, when you see that the answers have slowed down or stopped, please do share. We are all eager to see how this works out. Fantastic. Oh, interesting. Fabiola, what do you think of this mix of our audience?
No, it's really cool that we see that some people already have experience of or have experienced the power of HR and how we can be instrumental in the agile transformation. But we also see, and this is representative of the wider HR community, that we still have a long way to go.
Wonderful. Well, this is still for many of us, including myself, it's emerging, we're learning, we recognize the importance, but we still don't, we're still trying to learn how to kind of get started. So Fabiola was kind enough to prepare some material for us to kind of get us started. I would encourage everybody, if you have questions as she is presenting the material, let's please log them in the question and answer. After we go through the brief lightning talk, then we'll open up our panel and we'll start to use some of your questions for the conversation. So Fabiola, without any further ado, we would love to hear from you on what is happening in this world.
Okay. Thank you so much, Deema, and welcome everyone to our webinar where we talk about the importance of HR or the people function to business agility. And when we talk about everything that is happening in the world of work, quite often the first thought that we have is that revolution of work from a COVID perspective. You know, COVID really put us into high gear. But we would be remiss to blame COVID for the changing nature of work. It just exposed some of the challenges that were already there beforehand, and it accelerated other topics. But I really like this quote from Maurice Conti, and he said this, that over the course of the next 20 years, more will change around the way that we are working than has happened in the past 2,000 years. So if you think about it, we actually have 2 decades to figure out 2 millennia worth of evolution of work. So this is really a crazy yet exciting time that we're in, because the future of work is not going to emerge fully fledged overnight. All of us get to shape it and to make it happen. But the race is definitely on. And what we'll see is that some organizations are really going to thrive. They're going to maximize the people function. And other companies are going to be stuck in old thinking and old ways of doing things. But in order to understand what is really happening, we need to understand how is the world of work changing. And of course, the first thought that we always have is technology. Technology as the disruptor to the way that we work. And that is true. So if you think about complex, constantly evolving work is replacing routine work, we need to be more innovative, more creative to keep up, because we can no longer lean back and say, hey, this is a business model that has served us well for a couple of decades. We don't need to evolve that quickly. That's no longer true. Change is the new normal. So we need to be able to solve problems, and we are solving problems we never had to solve before. And all of that is changing the nature of work and how we define what work is. And we could go into depth about this. Unfortunately, we don't have time here, but if we sum it up, at the end of the day, we have to humanize work. We have to start thinking about what type of work is left for us humans. What type of work cannot be automated anytime soon? So it's the type of work that requires imagination and creativity and passion and the potential to leverage our social and emotional intelligence. So that's why we need to humanize work and cater around that. And in order to redefine work, we also need to redefine what is the organization. And when we think about organizations, we often think about the company as a machine, working like a Swiss clockwork, like a well-oiled machine. But the problem is machines run very well when everything is set up and stable. But the problem is they're not very open to change. What does change mean for the engine? It comes to a standstill, either in parts or as a whole. We need to do re-engineering, re-optimize it, and start the engine again. But that can no longer happen in this new world of work, where change is the new constant. We need to start thinking about the organization as an ecosystem, a thriving, breathing ecosystem that can manage complexity, that can manage constant change, vulnerability, and that finds its stability in that adaptability. So, and we need to embrace that. And that's where Agile comes in. Agile is the new operating model, but it's also about changing our people processes, our people function to leverage the company as an ecosystem. And that is where Agile HR comes in. And here's a quick definition of Agile HR. Agile HR is a term used to describe a more modern people approach for organizations and institutions who want to thrive in that complex, crazy, fast-changing world of work that we live in today. So it's really for companies who understand that the nature of work, the nature of organizations is changing. And in order to keep up, they need to maximize the people function in different ways. But here is a complexity that comes into play when we talk about human resources. Okay. And that has to do with the fact that when we use the word HR, the question is, what are we talking about? Are we talking about HR as a department, as an organization, or are we talking about HR as a discipline, as a function? And either way, Agile and HR are really a power duo, because at the end of the day, it's all about people. So it's two sides of the same coin. But because we have that complexity, that duality of HR, the approach to agility is slightly different. And you may have heard those two terms, Agile for HR and HR for Agile. So when we talk about Agile for HR, this is about how do we bring Agile practices and Agile thinking to the HR department. So this is about how do we reorganize around value, how do we change the way that we deliver value, how do we organize an interdisciplinary team and leverage Agile practices. Okay, so this is about bringing agility to the HR department the same way you would bring agility to an IT department or marketing department or other fields. But then on the flip side, we also have HR for Agile. So this is all about what can HR do for the Agile function. And this is about aligning or realigning all our HR practices from talent acquisition to performance management to this new way of working. And that's really where we have that leverage. That is where the magic happens. So when we start shifting from talent acquisition to talent scouting, when we start shifting from learning and development to talent enablement, when we start shifting from performance management to performance acceleration, when we start shifting from being a knowledge organization to a learning organization, that is really where we release the power of HR and the power of business agility. And when you look at your Agile transformations, it doesn't matter how successful you already are, how much you thrive in your Agile bubble. If we don't align our HR practices to it, you're never going to get the maximum value out of it. So we really need to align our people approach. This is also our leadership approach, our people approach, our people functions, our project, our HR processes to the new way of working in order to release all that power and all that investment into the Agile organization. And the first step on that journey is really speaking the new language, speaking the language of Agile HR, and really embrace or do that level setting through training. So we always start with training because we need to speak the same language. And it's also a way to get inspired to see what is the potential of embracing agility in the HR space and help the organization become and stay agile. Okay. And go ahead, Deema.
No, this is wonderful. So you actually are giving me something to think about. I go back to the early days of when I was doing transformations, that first set of teams, that first Agile release train, you almost have a little bit of a pass to treat it like an MVP or an experiment. Let's launch them, let's teach them lean Agile practices and mindset. But then once you start to get beyond that MVP, beyond that initial art, and want to scale, to achieve business agility, you really have to address HR topics and HR themes, right? So Charlene, clearly you have done this better than I have in the past. Tell us how you were able to engage HR in your transformations.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Deema. So I think there's two perspectives to look at here. The first one is, you've got kind of your new pilot that you're doing, your MVP, like you just said, Deema, right? You have a good opportunity here because we're still at the front end of the implementation roadmap. And when we think about who's going to be in that first leading SAFe class, we want to make sure when we're engaging not only just the folks that are part of delivery and the folks that are, working with the customer and managing the backlogs, but also the other people that are going to be crucial to your transformation, right? This is why we always say engage your executives, make sure that we engage some of the other shared services organizations, and also HR, marketing. I normally will engage with them very early on just to educate them on what this journey could look like and just to start planting some seeds. So if you've got a new Agile release train, and maybe this is your first area that you're trying to transform in the organization, definitely get them involved early so they know, what this could look like and how it could potentially impact them, and then plant the seeds on how they could potentially help. So that's one facet. A second facet would be maybe as a change agent, you're brought in to an already going transformation. one of the first questions I like to ask is, how is HR engaged in this? Are they involved? Are they, like an extended part of our LACE team? Where have they had any SAFe training? And based on the answers to those questions, then I'll go meet with them and I'll get their, perspective, and then try to get them into the next round of training so that they have an idea, via the leading SAFe class of what this is about, and how impactful it could be to have their participation in the transformation. So that's typically what I try to do. It's depending on where I come in when I'm engaged.
That's great. Well, my experience leading SAFe is a wonderful orientation, but sometimes it's a little bit of a bridge too far. So hopefully, we're all here today to talk about this introductory Agile HR Explorer class is a really good alternative. And I'm sure, Charlene, you'll share with us at the end where people can come and learn from you and experience. Fabiola, so Charlene is engaging HR from day one. What do you think? You're there, you're working and consulting with HR organizations there. Is HR really ready?
Yes, so HR can play a really crucial role, an important role especially in the early stages of transformation, because they have the knowledge about change management, or we prefer to call it change enablement, but change management and communication. So if you can engage them early on for these parts, these pieces of the transformation, that's really going to speed up the success of your transformation. But then, of course, HR always wears many hats. Later in the transformation, it's all about how do we align practices, which is a different skill. You're going to need different expertise, different parts of HR to come on board. And to your question, is HR ready? Something that we've seen, and I've worked with companies across the globe, different sectors, different sizes. It's not so much about the industry or the size or specific characteristics or specific industries. It's all about, are people hungry enough for change? Are they brave enough to push boundaries? Are they brave enough to take it to the next level? And do they have the foresight to understand, okay, Agile is the new way of working, and Agile is here to stay. And if we really want to have an Agile organization, we, one, need to learn about it. Two, we need to apply it ourselves. And three, we need to be an enabler of business agility in the organization. But as an industry, it's still early days for many organizations, but we have these pockets of foresighted, brave HR people that are really ready to do it. And by the way, if you're working with HR, you're going to meet some truly amazing people. So you're going to enjoy working with HR. I know HR always has a bad rap, but sometimes deserved, but sometimes undeserved, and you're going to meet amazing people.
That's awesome. So we're starting to get some good questions in the Q&A. I'm going to pose the first one to both of you. Please share recommendations on role mapping. So I'm going to rephrase it as, this is a question that can really benefit from a reframe. Right? We often start transformations. We get asked about, do you map role X to job title Y? What do you guys think? How do you reframe such a proposition for something a little bit more adaptive and lean agile?
I can go first, Deema. So when we start transforming our ways of working, and we start going down the SAFe path, part of the concepts we talk about are the dual operating system of business agility, right? That, when we go down this path, we may have some roles that you may not have implemented before. And the organizational structure, may persist, but we've got some additional things we want to do to create like our virtual network. So I think that applies to when you start thinking about your roles in some of these job families. We don't necessarily want to, redo your job family structure within HR or anything like that. It's very disruptive. Just like when we launch an Agile release train, we don't want to do a complete reorg of the hierarchy that's already in place. So along those same lines, we start to look at, well, what type of organization do you have? A lot of times we may have a heavy PMO driven led organization. And that's a source for many of the roles we're going to use on our Agile release train. Sometimes they map very nicely to your, project management structure that you may have put in place in terms of experience. So usually I try to help those conversations by looking at what that landscape looks like in its present state, and try to help people think through something that's logical, right? In terms of, where do your coaches fit in? Where would they lie? Where do Scrum Masters potentially fit in? And then as we progress the transformation, there's also the opportunity for career pathing and things like that I usually will help organizations develop. But I think that's always a good starting point. It's kind of starting with, what type of organization are you today? What do your job families look like? And where are the candidates that we need for some of these critical roles for the Agile release trains going to come from? And what could that look like? So that's my initial thought, Deema.
That's great. So this is that we're really, I mean, the reframe is about mindset at the end of the day, lean agile mindset. So we have a related question from the audience. Fabiola, perhaps you can help us with this. Is how do you suggest we build a lean agile mindset in HR? What's been your thoughts there?
Yes, just the same as you would build a lean agile mindset in IT or any other parts of the business. So this is all about, getting started, applying agile ways of working that are going to help you embed that mindset. But something that we find is sometimes, so there are two aspects that are sometimes missing. One is understanding what is that mindset. And that's why in our training, in the Explorer training and also in the other trainings, the first lesson is all around the new world of work. And we dig deeper into understanding what is truly changing. So this is not just about a fancier process or a process that is more tech-driven. This is really about understanding the underlying mindset and why we have so much pressure on performance management and adaptive workforce planning and other things. So first understanding that, and then we have to understand that just by teaching people a new way of doing things, but not changing the environment, is not going to get us there. So from a systems thinker's perspective, and which we are, we always look at it, how can we change the environment in order to embed that mindset? And if you think about agile transformations, that's what you're doing. You're changing the way teams work. By doing it, you're embedding a new mindset. And the same is true for all our HR processes and leadership processes, finance processes. We needed to look at all the tools and policies and procedures and processes that we have in place and see, are they actually helping or hindering us from being agile? And I can give you an example that all of you know. Look at performance management. We are doing it once a year. We are giving people, okay, this is what you need to reach. This is our yardstick. At the same time, we want to have exploration. We want to have adaptability. We want to have change readiness, which we are not going to get with the traditional thinking, but we need to understand the definition of performance is changing and the cycles are changing. But that also means that just by instead of doing one check-in once a year, doing 24 check-ins every 2 weeks, but leaving the system in place is not going to help. So if we want to embrace that new mindset, we really need to look at our processes, our tools very carefully, and then get there, then align it to the aspiring mindset.
Yeah, could I tag on there a little bit, Deema? Just kind of adding just a little bit of thoughts on, some of the two aspects that Fabiola had mentioned in her overview, and it's a kind of a lead into some of the HR training content. But the two perspectives of agile for HR is one perspective, right? Having them embrace some of the lean and agile principles and start to apply them within their own function. But then also one of the places I've found a lot of success with getting them started and engaged early is on the second half of that, the flip side of that, which is, having HR understand agile processes and support agile ways of working in the organization as we go through this transformation. I think that part is critical. And I think that's also an easy way to engage them. So kind of going back to the question about how do we start to change the mindset, I think Fabiola is pretty spot on when it comes to, educating them just like you educate everyone else. That's why I advocated strongly for getting them into that early leading SAFe class as part of the leaders that go to that, so that they can understand what this could look like and what the values and principles actually are. And a lot of times, when you engage with those functions early, it starts to plant some seeds, and a lot of times it'll help pull them in. Another useful thing I think I've found very helpful to get them engaged and also start to build that mindset, to Fabiola's point about, building that muscle memory by just working through it, right? You learn by doing, is getting them engaged on our LACE. I get them, when we first formed that Lean Agile Center of Excellence, I usually try to advocate for somebody from the HR function. That can be, they might not be able to be full-time in the beginning, but at least get them engaged so that they can see what the journey looks like. Some of the things that come up about roles, when people have questions about, the earlier question you had, Deema, on mapping roles and things like that, that comes up very early. And then before you know it, we're going to have to hire for some of these folks. And, HR is usually involved in that. So I think there's a lot of points of engagement here that help. And I certainly agree that, having them engage is going to help instill that mindset, because they're going to be learning with everyone else.
So, oh, please do.
No, I think we also have to consider, Agile also has to learn about HR and understand the inner workings of HR. And while it is great to have HR understand SAFe and maybe do a leading SAFe course, the question is always, at what point in that journey do you do it? We've seen that if you send HR to a leading SAFe course, because it's still a bit more tech driven, and it may be quite a challenge for them to understand it and to follow it up. That's why our recommendation would be start with something like the Agile HR Explore course, which is an introductory course, and it explains Agile values and principles from an HR perspective. So when we talk about working solutions and good designs, how can we translate that into HR? And in our experience, that's going to give you a higher return investment when they then come to a leading SAFe class, because they have more anchor points for that additional learning.
So it's funny you mentioned that there's 3 different questions in Q&A hovering around what is the training or the certification recommended. So you mentioned the first introductory course, and the reason really we're excited at Scaled Agile is that, Fabiola, you allowed us to take your amazing course and make it available through our SAFe platform for all trainers and learners to come in. So that's the Agile HR Explorer. Who is this course for, to start? And then maybe you can tell us a little bit about the advancement, because some people may want to advance beyond that introductory, some additional ones. But let's start with the first Agile HR Explorer. Who's this course for?
Yes, so the Agile HR Explore course is really an introductory course. So it's for anyone in HR, so your compensation specialists, your HR BPs, your L&D experts, so anyone in HR with limited or no Agile experience. So that's the perfect course for them. So this is not a course for people in HRIS or already working in Agile. This is not a course for Agile people who want to branch out into HR. This is really for HR people with limited to no Agile experience, to build that foundation. Now, to continue on that journey, if you have people who already have some experience, who want to dig deeper, then, for instance, the practitioner course is a great way, because we spend the second day only on HR practices, from talent acquisition to performance management. If you are in the Agile space and you want to branch out or work more closely with HR, we have the Agile HR Coach course, which is really about learning about the world of HR, and then dig deeper into how can we then align it. And if you've been on this journey for a long time and you really want to geek out with us, then come to the boot camp, where we really dig deep. We look at the bathtub theorem from systems thinking and apply it to adaptive workforce planning. So it's really going to be geeking out. But I can post that in those courses in the chat, or you can just ping us if you'd like to learn more.
That's wonderful. And I have to say, I have been a student of yours, Fabiola, right? There's a group of us, SAFe SPCTs. We actually went through the course with you. And what really struck me is that this is written in such plain introductory language that any business function can pick up on it. Even the agile principles were rewritten in a way where it's coming from very straightforward, clear, intuitive business language, and then it starts diving into the case studies that are HR specific, and the themes about the HR practices that are HR specific. So I really enjoyed the experience. I learned a lot. And I know somebody was asking in chat about Leading SAFe. Yes, Leading SAFe is still an introductory course, but we found that for business functions, you actually want to take a step back and have a bridge before that Leading SAFe class, and Agile HR does serve that. Charlene, I believe you have something to share with us coming up.
Yeah, so all of these chat questions are just timely. So thank you for your interest in this. And we have a couple of classes coming up. Icon's going to be, hosting an Agile HR Explorer class where you can get the Agile, the AHRE certification. So this will be taught, it's a one-day course. We're going to split it across 2 half-day sessions. It's going to be taught remotely. The next one we have is coming up in just a few weeks. So if you're interested, you can sign up for that. We still have spaces open November 7th and 8th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern time. We're also going to rerun that in January after the holidays. So if this November class is coming up too soon, you can also sign up at a later date after we switch years after the new year. So you've got the code here that you can hold your phone up to and take you to the page, or you can go to the iconagility.com webpage and you'll find our training material or training links there as well. All right, back to you, Deema, to wrap up.
So I always wrap up with the same question. If I can get a brief last piece of advice from each of you to this audience, what do we want to leave them with? Let's start with you, Fabiola.
Just empathize with HR if you come from the Agile space, and vice versa. And just be brave. You know, for the first time in the history of HR, we actually get to reinvent HR. Let's be brave. Let's do it together. And you're going to see you're going to be on an amazing journey.
Thank you, Fabiola. Charlene.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo some of the things I said before, which is summarized by please engage your HR folks as early as possible in the journey to help them along the way and help involve them so that your transformation can be more successful.
I want to thank you both. These half-hour webinars are almost never enough time. So if folks are interested, we do have a discussion forum on SAFe Studio for Agile HR. Let's continue the conversation there, and looking forward to your class, Charlene. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.